We are live, yet back again for a special occasion. Jock is on his way into our account, and we're going to wait for a bit till he dials us in. Thank you all for joining in. It's a lovely Friday afternoon, and it's going to be some nice conversations with Jock Zonfrilo, the judge on Masterchef Australia, and of course about his life, how he started his journey, and all the way to Masterchef Australia. It's going to be a fun afternoon. Yeah, we would make sure that we do a 15-20 minute conversation. So bring in your friends, enjoy this quick conversation with him, and then we're ready to go on to our next masterclass. Absolutely happy to answer questions at the moment. World on a Plate goes live for the very first time. Absolutely amazing masterclasses till now, and all of this for charity. The industry has come together. The idea is to bring this whole industry together, to hold hands, to make sure that they're there for each other and they're absolutely helping each other, and of course not to forget the people who are in need, which is why we're doing this whole bit. The last 2 days have been amazing. We've got master classes like no other. The chefs have spent their hard, they spent hours and hours curating these beautiful recipes, and I'm having the best time of my life. This is the farm, and this farm is amazing. The farm is absolutely, nice. I was running around finding it is Friday, and as you know, it is Sustainable Friday, and we are excited to have. We're waiting for Jock at the moment, waiting for a few more people to join in. All right. I think it's a little bit of a delay, but we're just about to start in the next few minutes. Yes. Jock. Hello. Jock, how are you doing?
Hello, mate.
How are you, my friend?
I'm very well. How are you?
Absolutely good. So good to see you back home in India for the very first time.
It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it's absolutely cool to have a chat with you. I think it was the last time, the first time ever having a conversation with you. It's a pleasure having you on at World on a Plate goes live. And
how are things over there in India with COVID?
COVID has been really hard on India. With the population like ours, you can only imagine the kind of pressure the economy has had. People are really suffering. So we've been on the ground for almost 112 days now, and we fed over 500,000 people, and 500,000 is actually a small number in a massive country like India. But we are trying to do our best. So the whole of the community of the chefs have come together for this specific cause at World on a Plate. They've spent hours and hours programming, their dishes, master classes, and so we are trying to make sure that we can serve as much as possible. And so that's what we're doing here at the moment. And I'm glad you could spend a bit of time with us. I wish
it's a pleasure. It's really nice to be able to speak to everyone, and we've had so many fans over in India watching MasterChef, which has been crazy, and so it's been we're really grateful, and we're humbled by the response that we've had from fans all over the world, but particularly in India.
Yeah, India is one of the biggest fan following of MasterChef. I've been lucky to bring many judges and chefs, back home here, and to show them our culture. And I look forward to bring you guys soon as all this is. And
I don't think we're going to be traveling for a while yet, unfortunately. But
hopefully not. I'm sure we have, somebody who will come out of the vaccine soon. fingers crossed, because India definitely needs a vaccine, because the
Yeah.
numbers are growing by the hour, and it's massive. And the only way we can go through this is through vaccine, and hope so we're. So quickly coming back to, we want to know, lots of people have been asking about this exciting conversation with you. So I want to know a bit about what inspired you to start cooking.
I think I kind of fell into cooking by mistake. I think, like a lot of people do. I wanted to buy a push bike that was very expensive, and I said to my parents, and I was very young, and I said I want to buy this push bike. I was about 11 years old. And it was a very expensive push bike. And my dad laughed at me and he just said, no way, if you want to buy this push bike, go and get a job and buy the push bike yourself. And then sort of, I tried to get a job. I couldn't get one. I already had a couple of paper rounds. It was just a nightmare. But anyway, eventually Dad said to me, if you get a job, I'll match every pound you earn, because this was in Scotland, obviously. For every pound that you earn, I'll match it with a pound. You can buy the bike. So that was it. I started sort of door knocking to try and find a job. And of course, I was only 11, so nobody would give me a job. I was too young. And eventually, somebody said, oh, you should try restaurants, because often restaurants, they'll hire anybody, So I went into this restaurant, knocked on the door, and they gave me a job washing dishes. And that was it. I started washing dishes. And after 2 weeks, one of the chefs didn't come to work because he had a motorbike accident. And the chefs came to me when I was washing dishes and said, hey, can you do the vegetables? Can you cook the vegetables tonight instead of washing dishes? And I said, sure, I can do that. I said, but there's 2 conditions at age 11, I'm saying. And he said, yeah, go on, what's that? And I said, 1, I don't want to wash dishes again. And 2, I want a pay rise. And so he gave me them both. And I got to cook vegetables that night. And it was just that, it was amazing. I think it was the first time that I'd ever felt that I was a part of a team. When you're a kid, you play some sports at school or stuff like that, but you don't feel from a work perspective as an integral part of a team. And I think that was a big sort of change for me as a young boy, where all of a sudden I was in this environment that was high pressure, and I felt that I was doing something as part of the team that was, I was needed to be there, type thing. You know what I mean? And I remember going home that night after cooking and just thought, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is, that feeling of service and the chaotic but organized chaos that a kitchen is. I just want, it was electrifying. It was addictive. It was exciting. And that was it. From that day on, my mind was made up that I was going to be a chef.
Wow, so everybody has been actually asking, among the World on a Plate fans, that how did you get that inspiration? That was for the fans of you at World on a Plate. So Scottish boy going all the way to Australia, inspiring story, and of course now you made history. But #1 the top restaurant, Orana, and I've had an opportunity to come to Adelaide, but heard so many good things about it. How did that inspiration start all over again? And of course, I think we have some connection and something in common, that you did work with Marco Pio White, and Marco did do 3 events with us. A great guy. So I want us to tell us about this journey happened from Scotland to Australia, and then a bit about Marco.
I think the first time I came to Australia was in the mid-90s for a year, and I had been working for Marco at that point for a couple of years, and I think it was, I was in the, I don't know how you say it. I suppose I was in the vortex of 3 Michelin star restaurants, and all that happens when you work in that type of restaurant. It's really, you kind of get blinkered by that kind of life. Do you know what I mean? And it's honestly, in a way, it's sort of at that age, at least back then, it was all consuming, but for no real reason, I thought, in the end. Do you know what I mean? And when I came to Australia for a year, I think it was a break out of Michelin star restaurants and taking a look around this vast country that was Australia, and having seen magazines from Australia, sort of, you know, with Uluru and with Indigenous people and all that sort of stuff. My expectation of what Australia was like and what was here when I got here were two very different things. Very naively, I mean, I was pretty young when I came here the first time. I think it was 18, and I didn't see any Indigenous culture really when I was here. I landed in Sydney and I stayed in Sydney for the entire time, and I didn't get to go anywhere and see Australian culture of Indigenous people, certainly. And so for me, it was an eye opener. But at the same time, I left after 12 months feeling as if I didn't see anything. I just didn't see the real Australia. And so I immigrated. I went back to London again, and I worked for Gordon Ramsay and Marco Pierre White again, and then you know, I was back in the UK for another 4 years, I think, before I immigrated back to Australia in 2000. And when I came back, I made the point to myself that, hey, you know, I'm going to really make a point of investigating Indigenous culture in Australia, because, you know, it's, for me, I think it's a big part of Australia, and you know, just because I can't see it in front of my face doesn't mean that it's not a thing. So I'm just going to go and find it, and that's what I did. In 2001, I went down to Circular Quay, which is in Sydney, and it's sort of like it's right in the edge of the CBD, pretty much on the harbour. And there was an Indigenous guy there busking with a didgeridoo, and I asked if I could sit down next to him and ask him some questions. And that sort of turned into a 4-hour conversation of him sort of beginning to tell me about growing up, what growing up for him was like in Western Australia, in the Kimberley, and down south. He was a Wadandi man from down south of Western Australia, and I like all of the different things that he was telling me just blew my mind. It was like talking to a professor of the land, and it's often a phrase we use for elders. You know, I consider them as professors of the land, because I've just never known so much knowledge to be connected with land, but not via an education system other than, you know, an Indigenous education system, which isn't school-based, it's not university-based, it's a life education. But, you know, and so when I say a professor of the land, I don't mean that lightly. I mean that, you know, the knowledge that Indigenous elders hold about this country and the land they walk on, their land, is phenomenal. I can't even begin to explain. And so, you know, this conversation turned into 4 hours, and in 4 hours, you know, there was just, you know, the things that for him were just obvious and normal. You know, like when a plant, there's a lily that blossoms down on the beaches in Arnhem Land, and it flowers at a time of year when the stingray get fat, they get engorged livers, you know, like a foie gras does, and that's when they hunt the stingray. And then there was this, he was telling me about this whole process about how they cook the stingrays, and there's a few different sort of versions of cooking, whether they boil it in the seawater or whether they cook it over the fire and then season it with seawater, but they remove the engorged liver first, and then they just kiss it onto the fire gently, just a couple of like 10 seconds basically, and then they fold that engorged liver through the meat of the fish. And I'm sitting listening to this guy and thinking, this is 3 Michelin star. This is actually This
Wow.
is a level of connection that is beyond, we must have the perfect plum tomato, or do you know what I mean? It was perfection that also meant something through connection to where we were, and it was a total game changer for me. But I think both as a person and also as a chef.
How the
It just
Orana concept came about? Did you
I think
start
the beginning, that would have been the seed for sure. That was sort of, at a moment where, a conversation like that for me as a young chef, I guess, and looking around me in Australia and asking myself the question, why can no one else see this? Like, how is it that every restaurant doesn't take this into account while they're cooking? Do you know what I mean? And it was just,
There's nothing
a mind-blowing moment.
There's nothing more beautiful than indigenous ingredients, because while the Michelins of the world are all about presentations and all kinds of stuff, you fly things around the world. I think going forward, and the whole story of hunger, which you look at it, why are we not using the most amazing ingredients which are absolutely available around you? And that's what I see many of the new age chefs pushing the envelope, doing stuff like that, and even back here in India. So we're very proud. So that's why we wanted to set up World on a Plate, because lots and lots of fans from around the world wanted to see chefs, Indian chefs, cook some amazing meals, right? So that's what we do here. And I think many of these guys are inspired by people like you and others who are actually pushing the envelope. And so what is the journey of Orana? To give us more insight on how did this baby happen?
Look, it's been a tough one, because it just wasn't I think the story of what we're doing is something that just wasn't, while I wanted to immediately do something, it just wasn't possible at a time during that time in Australia, because it just wasn't a concept that was easily accepted for people. And of course there is, there are problems like there are in every country between indigenous people and non-indigenous people, and no more so than here in Australia, where we have a history which is difficult. At the end of the day, we are, and I say we, I'm saying me as an immigrant. I'm a guest in this country, and I feel very privileged to stand here in Australia. And I've deliberately went out my way as a human in the 20 years that I've lived here and called Australia home, to connect with Indigenous people on country and on country with them, and spend time listening to their stories. And I've been fortunate enough to, I've been shared a lot of stories and a lot of traditions over that time. And I felt, to be honest with you, that was essential for me if I was going to call Australia home. And from there, that then led to the I guess the mindset for me as a chef. If I was going to cook food in a kitchen, then it has to have been, it has to be connected to this. It has to be connected to the place. And when I look around me, certainly back then more so than now, if I looked around me back then and said, does the average Australian who now calls Australia home, as in a non-Indigenous Australian, do they understand Indigenous culture? Are they appreciative of it? Do they acknowledge it? Do they think, what do they think of it? And, the answers weren't fantastic at the end of the day. And so my mission almost became to find a way that I could, because I only know food, to find a way to do a restaurant that would acknowledge Indigenous people, their culture, and I would do that through food. And if I could do that, then that would make a change for Indigenous people in regards to, the people who now call their home, and I think we've been able to do that. I mean, Orana, I've got to tell you, when we first opened the restaurant, we had no customers, man. Like, it was, we lost so much money. The first sort of 3 years, the first year, I was talking to one of my old managers the other day. We were sitting in the restaurant with our heads in our hands on a Friday and a Saturday night, thinking, worrying about, how many weeks can we go like this with no customers before we have to give up, and all we wanted to do was for somebody who wasn't aware of Indigenous culture but called Australia home to come in, eat the food, and then have a change of mindset about Indigenous people. You know what I mean? And just sort of go, hey, isn't it amazing? It was more about acknowledgement than anything. How can we get an average, person, whether they're traveling through Australia or living in Australia, to acknowledge Indigenous people and their culture? And that's why Orana exists, to be honest.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I'm sure, a couple of important questions left first. I'm sure, what is your thought on the post-COVID time? Because every industry, especially the restaurant industry, is going through the worst time of their lives. Because we are all about asking people to come and socialize with us. We are all about get-togethers. We are all about saying, come and have a meal, I'm going to feed you. Where are we going from here, Jock? I've been asking these questions to a lot of big chefs and from the restaurant industry. Where are we going from it?
Look, I think it's going to be tough. We're going to face the toughest time that our industry has ever faced coming out of COVID. It's as simple as that. And I think for me, we don't know what the answer is going to be. It's like looking at a newborn baby and saying, it's going to be a mechanic or it's going to be a spaceman. We don't know. It's impossible to tell. We are treading completely new waters. I think one thing for sure is that we know that our industry has to change. There's no way that without major change. So, and I mean that in a way of operating. I don't know how it is in India, but certainly in Australia, a lot of restaurants were, on the edge of insolvency, really a lot of the time. The profit margins, I think nationally was something like 4% or something. It's very, very low. And, I think the value of a restaurant, the work the staff do, the amount of work they do, the cost of ingredients, if you're buying on the premium end, is super expensive. And I think it needs to be realized in a better way. And I think something like this, the tragedy that is COVID has made people realize, actually, restaurants cost a lot of money to operate, plus they don't actually make a lot. What are we doing in terms of an industry to rebalance do you know what I mean? Like, it is, like what you're saying is dead right, and it's necessary. Yeah, we do need to feed, there's so many chefs, Ben Shuri and guys in Melbourne, for example, right now, who are, feeding visa workers who aren't covered by government sort of subsidies at the moment, etc. That is so essential, and it's incredible the work that's happening here and there. But your question is the biggest one that no one has an answer to. It's the $1 million question. What happens once planes start flying again? Do we relax back into the way we were before because it's just too hard to think of solutions to these problems? The answer should be no. The answer to what happens next is only going to happen if, as an industry, and even I say this, quite heavily globally, that we come together and start talking about solutions. Because even within your country, you can come up with an idea, but it can be far more sort of inspirational talking to your counterparts overseas in industries in other countries where they think about things completely different, or they're already operating in a way that is far more sustainable. Whether that's from a food perspective, whether it's through staffing, whether it's through, whatever, But one thing's for sure is that we cannot, as an industry, go back to operating the same as we were pre-COVID. It's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, the margins might be different, but but the fact is that we definitely cannot operate like we were operating pre-COVID, because every restaurant is about dining, and the whole space is completely turned upside down here.
Yeah.
Thousands of people, thousands of restaurants are closing because of the COVID scenario. But the only hope is, like, we try to, lots of people are innovating in areas like delivery and places like that. But you cannot replace dining with delivery. It's impossible. And
No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's an operator here in Australia called Morris Terzini, and he's got icebergs and a number of other venues. But he's got a sort of campaign, an awareness campaign, if you like, which is, it doesn't taste like this at home. And you know what? It doesn't taste like that at home, and you don't get the same feeling of hospitality at home. Yeah, sure, you can order that food and you can have it delivered at home and you can eat it at home, and it's nice, but it's just not the same. And we've got to remember that restaurants exist as an experience. They exist as the word hospitality. I mean, look it up in a dictionary. You know what I mean? And we're in that industry, and we can't forget that. It's not just about food and margin and a job. Hospitality workers, and anyone who's passionate about it will tell you they're in the business of hospitality because they love, they love looking after guests. They love looking after friends. And do you know what I mean? And everybody wants to do that. But we should be able to do it in a way where we can still feed our family and pay the rent and not get shafted, So I think it's a prudent question to ask now before COVID is out. I mean, at the end of the day, this is not a time to sit on the edge of your seat and go, well, everything will be back to normal. It's like, come on, man.
So coming to the biggest question, big Masterchef fans around India, and of course, like World on a Plate has had, I think, almost every other chef coming and to cook, and they love you guys so much. The restaurant industry generally looks up to, what happens in Australia, the way you guys feed people, the way you get yourself involved in hospitality. It's exciting for India. I want to know the journey from you as a restaurateur to a judge. How did you make the move from Adelaide all the way to Melbourne, Sydney, and life must have changed a lot, because I believe there's a lot of course, months and months of programming, right? With Masterchef
yeah, there is, and look, I mean, obviously, I'd been on as a guest judge a few times before, which was great fun, but it's very different than sort of being on the show every day. But they asked me last year if they could throw my hat in the ring, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I didn't really think anything of it. And I mean, for me, it was not something that I'd sort of really thought about doing. I didn't actively seek it. It just sort of got presented to me, and so I kind of, I don't know. It kind of happened quickly. I was in the middle of the pop-up. We did a pop-up in Sydney, and they asked me, and I was an immediate no, because I was in a feral mood. I was in a real bad mood. Everyone's asking that question that's in front of my face. I don't know how to get rid of it. How do you get rid of it?
I'm sorry? No, that's
There's a question in front of my face, but I can't get rid of it.
You don't need to answer that question. We've already answered.
No, but I mean, I can't get rid of the bubble.
Yeah, even we haven't been able to get rid of that bubble. So,
okay. Sorry, everybody.
No problem. So coming back to the, the question of Masterchef Australia, this season, I've watched it closely, and I was very delighted because, of course, the three judges, George, Gary, Matt, they've been holding those like those three pillars of Masterchef, and I was questioning, how that whole pillars are going to be taken forward, but it was so easily done, and it was so well executed. It was so easily, three of y'all maxed that, took care of that space so well. Oh, finally, we're out of that.
We're done.
I don't know. So it was amazing how you guys managed the show, and congratulations to you. We're so excited to have it air in India. And one of the contestants is doing a masterclass today. At the end of the day, Simon too. We connected on the sustainable, style of cooking, and since the whole idea of hunger was is about sustainable cooking and how we can actually bridge the gap. Simon is doing something. Do you have a bunch of things to say about your journey this year as a judge, and of course about Simon?
First of all, Simon was an amazing cook. He is an amazing cook, and he was. I thought he was going to go so much further than he did. I was really disappointed when we had to get rid of him. But as I always said to a lot of sort of people who are disappointed when a favourite goes home, unfortunately, the worst dish goes home on the day. That's the way it is. And sometimes that sucks. Yeah, sometimes
you
it
don't know what's
sucks.
expected, and it just happens.
Yeah, it sucks for us too. But it's just the way it is. I think I've just been, really, really lucky. I feel so lucky to stand there and eat the food of the contestants. We started out with 24 contestants. They were all fantastic cooks. And I think for me, when you start eating one by one these dishes, and at the beginning you're sort of like, what do you say about this person on this one dish? It's difficult at the beginning, but as you go through the competition, towards the end, you've walked with all of these contestants the whole way, and you've seen them grow, you've seen them develop. They've picked up new skills. They've done masterclasses with you. They've listened to your feedback constructively, and so all of a sudden, by the end of the competition as a judge, it feels very different than the first day you walked in. I mean, for us, it was different because at the end of the day, we were sort of filling the shoes of the previous three judges who are friends of mine. And yeah, big shoes to fill, or all of the other things that the media like to report on. But at the end of the day, it was the beginning of our time, and at the beginning of a new chapter of Masterchef. And I used to watch Masterchef growing up. And the last three judges weren't the judges. Do you know what I mean? The Masterchef as a brand will outlive, all judges all over the world. So don't worry about it. There'll be other ones after me. So I think for me, it was just, when COVID struck halfway through, it changed again for us as judges, because we couldn't, I'm an emotional, touchy-feely kind of person. I want to give you a hug. I want to hug you and celebrate. I want to hug you when you're down and you're struggling, or do you know what I mean? And
you have problems in India, everybody will want to hug you. Come on.
It's so hard. All of a sudden, we couldn't do that anymore. And that was tough, it was tough. But, we've all been very humbled to stand there in that kitchen and take the reins, and we're thoroughly enjoying it.
Absolutely. So before I go away, and it's been such a beautiful time talking with you, I just want to say two things. One is, World in a Plate actually started off. I mean, I was inspired by one of the judges, George, and of course all of them. They came and stuff. The first World in a Plate happened with them. I definitely want to bring you guys back, as all the three of you, Alan and Melissa. One thing great. Spend some time eating some great butter chickens and all the great food in India, which is what we have to offer. And absolutely, we definitely love all of you all. I mean, as a country, as human beings, you guys have been amazing. Every single amateur chef, professional chefs are inspired by what Masterchef Australia does. It takes cooking to
amazing,
which. And you guys have been amazing, and thank you for this support, and thank you for just supporting the cause, because all we're trying to do is get the industry together and get people to come together, donate. Of course, the chefs are donating their time people are coming on, in large numbers and donating because we just want to feed as many people as possible. And
Yeah.
without further ado, I would, give you a virtual hug. And it's been a pleasure. Before you go, some inspiring words for many, many chefs inspired by you and by, just the idea of hospitality. Definitely want to hear from you because I think there is hope. Hope is the strongest word I keep saying, especially for our industry. I want to ask you to say a word before you go.
Look, first of all, the work that you're doing there is amazing, especially at a time like this. So keep going, man, and all power to you, brother. It's a tough time to be operating, let alone doing what you're doing. So congratulations, well done. And I hope everyone gives you more support, man, because you deserve all of the things, man. Like it's, you need more support. And the second thing for all the young cooks out there, and even for the ones that are starting during this time, because of course, let's remember, there are going to be people who are starting their career now in this crazy time. Imagine that, and that's even worse. There are always people who are less fortunate than you. There is always a culture who are ignored, where you are not. There is, you're going to be surrounded by that your entire life. And for me, coming to Australia, spending time on country with Indigenous people, one thing that I was told from day one, and I've been told repeatedly from various elders around the country, is to give back more than you take. And if you just think about that for a second in your day-to-day work, whoever you are, you don't even need to be a chef. If you go into work one day, and whether it's something that you learn or something that you got a gift or you got a whatever, if you think to yourself, just that phrase, I want to give back more than I take. Like if you think about that, and during the day you give something, it might be 10 minutes of your time at the water cooler to cheer someone up. It might be make someone a cup of tea and drop her off at the desk. It could be anything, man. It doesn't even have to cost you anything. It's just about being a better person. And, there are people around you who are struggling. Just be conscious enough to have a look around you and care for everyone that's around you, especially at a time like this.
Amazing. That's an inspiring conversation. I'm going to allow you to have your Scottish scotch, which I see you enjoying your Friday. And, I'll say namaste, and I'm going to, get your address off, online and send you a little gift of some badge which we're going to send you just because we love you and we're happy. And thank you for just joining us. And
that's awesome. Thank you for having me, man.
There are some amazing chefs, in India. We've been promoting them, and of course some of the top chefs as well. And love from India. Thank you, Jock.
Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was Jock, and such a gentleman. I think we've had an amazing conversation with him. Like I said, this is just the start of a beautiful journey at World on a Plate, and WOAP goes live for the very first time. Guys, there's a pinned WOAP.in. The website is on. Chefs are cooking. The next chef is ready to start his masterclass. It's the first time we are actually going to go on and say, give this whole experience of the World on a Plate to the whole world, where they can watch chefs from around India and the world doing amazing masterclasses. You can chat with them after each masterclass, and there you go. We promised you Jock, and we had Jock chatting with us, and see you guys soon on the other side with another conversation. We've got a bunch of masterclasses happening, and we've got Shashi from Masterchef as well. We've got Simon Tudhi, the runner-up of Masterchef 2019, doing a masterclass in a few hours. Stay locked on, and see you guys soon.